AVRant and SVS have teamed up to bring you an unbelievable opportunity. Have you been dreaming of dual subwoofers? Perhaps you'd like to upgrade your entire 5.1 speaker package. Don't have the cash? AVRant and SVS have your back. Go to www.avrant.com right now for your chance to win your choice of dual PB1000 subwoofers or a Prime 5.1 satellite speaker package. Contest ends September 30th. Don't wait. Open to the residents of the United States and Canada. We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
All right. Jay. Jay has finally managed to convince the design committee. Now, we should name this one design committee, but I can't. To try placing one of the subwoofers at the midpoint of the true back wall. The room is an open, great room of 12,000 cubic feet. The McMansion. Before this, the subwoofers were diagonally opposite, but only within the theater area. The bass does seem more even, but not as hard hitting. He may have been sitting in the peak, maybe. In the new placement, sub 2, the HSU VTF 3 Mark V sticks out quite a bit, so we decided to place it against the back wall sideways. Is this a bad thing? Should he place the other sideways as well to compensate?
It's
not a
fine,
bad thing,
and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Turn it upside down for all we care. We don't really care.
I mean, yeah,
lie to the side. It's fine.
Don't physically sit the driver on the ground, where it would be, trying to push itself up and down like push-ups. But other than that, it really doesn't matter. We're talking about omnidirectional frequencies here that are just making a big sphere when they come out of that sub, so it doesn't matter what way they're putting. That's why a down-firing sub can work just fine with a front-firing, or you could have a sub where, it has drivers on both sides, and they're firing out the two sides or firing out the front and back. Totally doesn't matter. So that part's fine.
So Sub 2's new location is on a probation period, since they'll need to prove it actually makes a big enough difference. This is because it is a big, black, ugly box next to the all-white modern decor. Welcome to the wonderful world of speakers, especially subwoofers, where you can have any color you want as long as it's black. He never thought he'd ever get a chance to locate the subwoofer from the back, so he didn't research if white subwoofers exist. Are there options to make his subs more white? Well, he got a whitewash subwoofers now too. Is that what we're doing?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I took it
never
there.
Thought of that. I know you did.
I took it there. All right, anyways, he's seen speakers being vinyl wrapped on YouTube. Is this a viable option? What about the grills? Would he be able to spray paint the grills and not damage the sound? And the other ideas. You cannot spray paint the grills.
Not if it's a fabric grill. No.
Not as a fabric. That will damage the sound. You could theoretically dye the grills if they weren't already black, in which case you'd have to bleach them or something. I don't know.
Or you could just get some white grill cloth and either replace it on the existing frame or make another frame that fits. Or
just literally wrap the entire thing in that stuff. I
guess, yeah. Just put white fabric around the whole thing, sure.
White fabric around the whole thing. You could do that.
I mean, the rest of the cabinet, do whatever you want to make that white. I mean, it's probably just a vinyl wrap anyway.
That's exactly what it is.
Or just if it's an HSU, it's that textured finish, kind of like that bed liner type finish. So yeah, I mean,
sexy. I can understand why your wife doesn't like that. You've got some options here, I think. You could DIY this thing in many ways. You could literally get white fabric and just wrap it. And that would work. It would not be optimal, but it would work. Since you've got it sideways, I guess the amp is sort of off to the side so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But you could take it someplace, local, any sort of paint shop, finishing carpentry place, and say, listen, I don't want this to be black anymore. I want it to be white. Can you make the parts and then just rewrap or take the because usually the grill fabric is either stapled or
Yeah.
glued on.
Yeah.
So just pull that off of the existing frame, buy some white fabric, and then redo that. That should be something you should be very easy to do
Yep.
yourself. Then take the speaker itself and say, I want this not to be black anymore, and find out what they're gonna charge you to do it. Now, how big is this sub? Is this one of those monster ones?
Oh,
Right?
it's a huge, a VTF-3.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
big.
yeah, yeah. So that's going to be a pain. It might just be easier, literally, to rewrap the front of this thing and then do something to place things, on the sides and the top. Almost like not build a cabinet around it because you would want it to be form fitting to it. But we saw somebody do this with a SVS cylinder sub where they built like a white.
It was just white paper. It was white paper in that case going around the cylinder.
I mean, construction paper? I don't know.
I don't
know. Any of this stuff works. But are there white subs? There are. They're usually very tiny and are sold by companies that will promise the world of them, and they're very neat to look at, and they're usually roundish for whatever reason. No one buys big white subs. It's just not a thing. It's not a thing. So, yeah. So, anyways, does the placement of the subwoofers need to be exactly at the midpoints? He asks. He can only manage one of them 16 feet from a sidewall and the other 14 feet. The biggest difference he noticed is that the bass is definitely quieter, though he's finally able to hear the heartbeat sound that Rob talks about in the opening of The Dark Knight Rises. I would say 16 feet and 14 feet is, it's good.
Well, and I mean, this isn't a perfectly rectangular room either, anyway.
Yeah.
And it's got some obstructions in there and that, so... No, I think you're doing quite well. I mean, if you weren't able to hear that subtle bass heartbeat thing, and I love that as a test because people go, oh, there it is. There's a thumping heartbeat that gets my own heart racing. If that is masked or just overblown or whatever, and then now you can hear it, you're probably hearing more accurate bass. I got to tell you. The question is, when something really slams and goes crazy, it's a big explosion. Does it still sound loud and explodey? Because if it does, you're probably hearing more accurate bass, almost certainly, right?
Yeah, it does sound that way to me too. The first thing I noticed when I got dual subs was that it sounded quieter.
Yep.
Until it didn't, and then it really didn't.
That's right.
And that's what we're looking for out of the bass. We want bass to be not there except when it's supposed to be there. Bad bass supposed to be, and there when it's not supposed to be. And sometimes it's there when it's supposed to be as well, but it's not the right volume, or it rings much too long, or all of that. So what you're hearing, it sounds to me, is much more accurate bass. Mm-hmm. You're hearing sounds you weren't hearing before, and you're not hearing sounds that you weren't supposed to be hearing before. It does sound quieter. It should sound quieter.
Yep.
It should sound more even. And I think that's what you're getting to.
But yeah, the big test, of course, is play sweeps. Play bass sweeps.
Yeah.
And if those bass sweeps now sound more even throughout the entire sweep, you don't hear a big roller coaster type of sound where some are louder and some are quieter, then you've got nice linear bass. Now, I mean, he asks if, the placement that he has, let's say he goes and plays the bass sweep, he does still hear some hills. He does still hear some ups and downs. Could he improve that without having to physically move them in some way by, say, adding a mini DSP to his system? And yes, you could. It comes down to that whole incredibly time-consuming trial and error way of doing it, because that's the only way to approach it at that point is crazy trial and error of small adjustments of the phase of one of the subs.
Is he using, he's got...
I can't remember what his sub 1 is, his first subwoofer, because I know the HSU only has a 0-180 phase switch. It doesn't have fully variable phase. If you have Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 with independent distance settings for the two subs, you could do it that way without having to buy a mini DSP. So essentially, though, you have to be able to adjust the phase / distance / time, because that's what all of these really are, is a time difference. You have to be able to adjust the time of one of the subs and not the other one. If they're both being adjusted, then that doesn't help it. So you have to, if one of your subs has fully variable phase knob, you can do it that way. If you have independent distance settings because you have Multi-Q XT32 with sub EQ HD, you can do it that way. If you don't have either of those, you can get a mini DSP and do it that way. But it's trial and error to find out what works.
Did we answer this? I guess we did. Is it theoretically possible? It is theoretically possible to move sub 1, whichever that is, to the 16-foot position, but it encroaches on the breakfast table area, and he doesn't want to push his luck too far. He can't find a way to permanently locate sub 2 on the back, true back wall of the opening. Would room correction help him? What Rob just said about adjusting the phase, yes. I personally think that you're probably overthinking this thing, and you should just enjoy your new wonderful base.
It sounds like stuff has improved. Yeah.
Yes, you've improved stuff. Live with it a little while. If you don't have a receiver with Odyssey or the good YPOW or one, or I guess Drac or something like that, then you that's where you should be looking next to make your next big improvement. Because I think the difference between 14 and 16 feet is not going to be as noticeable as you think. You could always wait until she leaves and then test it out.
and base sweeps are your friend. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna bet you're not gonna hear that difference. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.